on the screen. Can everybody see that? I hope so. Just give me a thumbs up, someone. Yep, fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to share with you the story of the bus that God bought. It's just an amazing story. This happened a few years ago, and we'll have some questions and answers at the end if you want. So do just remember those, because God did some amazing things, and I just want to be able to share that with you today. So the bus that God bought. Why did God need a bus? Why did he have to pay for it? And what did he do with it once he bought it? Well, we're about to find out. You know, one of my favorite verses in the Bible is Revelation chapter 12, verse 11. And it says that he, and they, which actually is you and myself, that we can overcome him, the devil, by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of our testimony. So somehow when we share what Jesus has done for us, and we share it to other human beings, it does something amazing in the spiritual realm. It helps to overcome the enemy. Of course, it's nothing of ourselves, but it's because we're giving glory to Jesus and because of the blood of the Lamb, because if Jesus didn't die for us, there would be no reason for living. But he gives us that reason, and he gives us the hope, and he gives us the power and the strength to overcome the enemy when we share what amazing things he has done through us and for us. So we all know this verse as well, Luke 1:37, it says, "For with God nothing shall be impossible." And who here knows this verse? Just put your hands up. Yep, so we all know this verse, right? We've probably read it 100 times, but do we really believe it? Do you really believe that with God, nothing is impossible? So think of all the things in your life that you think, oh, it's too hard, I could never do that, that's impossible. No, you can just forget about that, because with God, it's possible, okay? But we have to actually believe it, and we have to trust that Jesus can do it.
In our worship, so I'll share my screen. I hope you'll be blessed.
Okay, and there's also another little verse that I really like from my favorite author, and it says that there is no limit to the usefulness of the one who, putting self aside, makes room for the working of the Holy Spirit upon his heart and lives a life wholly consecrated to God. So what does that mean? It's just like the verse we read before from the Bible. It means that God can use us without limit, and that our usefulness for the service of the King is unsurpassed. We can't limit it. There is nothing that God cannot do through us to accomplish his will and purpose in our lives at this time in Earth's history. But there is there's a clause. The clause is we have to give ourselves fully to God and put self aside. So that means you have to put aside all your doubts. You have to put aside all your fears. You have to put aside your selfishness. And when you do that, and when you fully surrender your life to Jesus, do you know there's no limit to what he can do through us? And that's pretty amazing. And as long as we are living wholly consecrated to God, so that means that you don't choose your plans for the future. You don't choose who you're going to marry. You don't choose where you're going to live. You don't even choose what job you're going to have. But you always pray and say, Lord, is this your will for me at this time? Because walking in the center of God's will is powerful. We know that Enoch walked and talked with God, and we are told that he walked in the center of God's will. I want to experience what that is like. And at times I have, and there's nothing like it. But, you know, if you do that, if you fully surrender or consecrate your whole life in service for the King, God can use us without limit and without measure. And so this brings me to my next favorite quote. It says, "To everyone who offers himself to the Lord for service, withholding nothing, is given power for the attainment of measureless results." So again, we see that if you feel like you're weak, that's true, you are, we all are. Without Christ, we are nothing, we can do nothing. But if we surrender everything to God for service and we withhold nothing, we will be given that power, that supernatural power, to be able to attain measureless results. So let me just break it down in a nutshell. If we fully surrender and give everything to Jesus, he will use us without limit and without measure. I wish I could hear an amen, but I know that you're you're muted. So I'm just going to pretend that you all said that, okay? Because that's pretty epic. That's quite amazing. And I think that we should all be living a life like this. Now, I want to share a little story with you that really was the catalyst to beginning of this whole bus adventure. And it all started because my sister and I, Carla, we were called to go out to a desert place. And it was a tiny little old country outback Queensland town. And God called us there to do a Philip. So we all know the story of Philip, yeah? You know, where God said, hey, Philip, I know that you're an evangelist for Samaria. I know that you're preaching the word and casting out demons and healing the sick and doing all these amazing things. But will you go to the desert for one soul? And Philip said, absolutely, I'll give up everything and I will go. Remember that story? And he was walking. He didn't even know who he was going to have to witness to, who this precious soul was. But then as he was walking past this Ethiopian, and might I say, he was the Ethiopian from Queen Candice. Yes, I just had to throw that in. When he met that Ethiopian, the Holy Spirit said, this is the guy. You need to tell him all about Jesus. So he did. And we know the story. The Ethiopian was converted. Then he went back to Ethiopia. I like to hope and think that Queen Candice will be in the kingdom because of the witness that he had on her. But we don't know that. But we do know that when the work was done, what happened to Philip? God just zapped him and he was taken to another town to continue the evangelism there. So myself and Carla were called to go to this desert place. Not a place we choose to go of our own free will, but we have learnt to say yes when God calls, even if it's what you don't want to do, because at the end of the day, there's a soul who wants to know Jesus, and who are we to stop God sharing his amazing truth with them? So we said, yes, Lord, we'll go. We don't want to, but we will. We'll be obedient. So we went to this little outback town, and do you know that both Carla and myself, we have a lot of qualifications, we've got a lot of experience, but we could not even get an interview in any of these little towns that we lived near. No one would give us even an interview. We would apply for all these jobs, nothing. And it wasn't because we didn't have the skills or the experience, but it was very much a small town mentality. I don't know if you guys are familiar with how sometimes these things can work, but we weren't locals. And so no one would hire us. Instead, they would hire, you know, the kid of their best friend, and you know how it works. So we were kind of forced to just do what Paul did. Paul was a tent builder by trade. So he just started up his business wherever he went. And so that's what we did. So what we actually did is we started up this mobile juice bar. Now, this is back in the day when, you know, Boost had only just been around for a little bit, but there was no such thing really as mobile food vans or you know, smoko vans or anything like that. So we were kind of like starting it out pretty much, you know, without too many other, you know, known businesses that we could sort of have a look at and get ideas from. So what we actually did, you can see here that we bought a box trailer and we simply just converted it into a little mobile juice bar. Okay, so, you know, it wasn't the Rolls Royce of things, but it was practical. It did what it had to do. And with this little business, so I had my freezer there, it was all gas, it was solar powered. I had my fridges there, I had all my juices and my smoothies, and there was all storage underneath and above. And basically this started off just as a mobile juice bar. And then it soon became, you know, a mobile food business. So we started doing a whole bunch of healthy food items. And I'll show you some of these items right now. So we were doing, you know, lots of amazing plant-based foods. So just everything that most people like, but healthy, okay? And how did we do this? We would go into every little town, one little country town, each different day of the week, and we would go into every single business and let them know what specials we had for the day. We had a menu, they would order it, we'd go back to the juice bar, and then we'd make it fresh and then bring it back and deliver it to them at their desk. Now, this was really ahead of its time. This was before Uber Eats, and this was before Menulog and Deliveroo and all these kind of guys. We kind of were there in the forefront in the early days. And the whole reason we started up is because we needed to support ourselves. And secondly, we wanted to to offer something that no one had. So in a lot of these little country towns, all they had was, you know, an RSL, a pub, and a fish and chip shop. So we thought we'd offer something different, not knowing how well it would work, but actually God blessed abundantly and people loved it, and the service was amazing. And as people got to know myself and my sister, realizing that we're health professionals, they would start confiding in us, asking health advice, and we'd give them advice. And then God did miracles, and people were overcoming ailments that they'd had for years, and lifestyles were being changed and modified. And it was just a real blessing, and God just did amazing things. And this was actually the best opportunity for us who were not locals, who didn't know anybody at all in town, to go in and meet all the locals and the people that worked there. So we ended up knowing all the employees in every single business, because we didn't just sit on the corner of the road waiting like the fish show for people to come and buy our goods. If we did that, we would have gone bankrupt initially. So what did we do? We were proactive. We went into every single business. We met every single staff member. We gave them taste tests. We got them to try our goods, and then they all became customers. And it was so busy in the end that we were both working full time to be able to service this amazing business. So God really blessed. But the biggest blessing was that because we got to meet people and we got to befriend them, amazing things happened. We actually started doing Bible studies with people because of the juice bar. Now, don't tell me that health is not the opening wedge, because it is. And so many amazing things happen. It's just an absolute blessing. So because of this mobile juice bar that we had, and we were running this for a couple of years, the vision came to us, what if we actually had a big, massive wellness clinic, on wheels, where we could travel around to all the little outback towns, meet people where they're at, offer a service that was unthought of. You go to these little country towns, a lot of them don't even have hospitals. The healthcare is very stretched. And we thought, how amazing would that be? Imagine if we could go into these little towns and, treat them with natural remedies. Imagine if we could counsel with them. Imagine if we could do consults with them and get to share Jesus. Our minds just really expanded, but only because of the experience that we had with this mobile wellness, because of the mobile juice bar. So we started thinking about this, and we decided to start just looking, online for something that was really big, like maybe a big old bus or maybe a motorhome, where we could somehow convert that space into a living quarters as well as an actual clinic. And so the vision started. We looked around, we found lots of things online, but they were in different states. And, we were obviously in the Outback, Queensland, and they were all very expensive. And let me just note that Carla and myself at the time were both full-time students. So we were very poor. We were living week to week, and we both had just casual jobs. We didn't have any savings. We had no money in the bank, but we were really inspired to do this. And we just kept praying and saying, God, we think this is a good idea. And if you're putting it on our heart, then you're going to have to really lead and guide and open up doors and even supply the means, because we got nothing. But we did. We just did our part faithfully, and we kept praying, and we left it to God. And every single week, my sister, who was working in a nearby town, every time she was at work, she would see the local newspaper. And in the newspaper, they've got the classifieds at the back, all the things for sale and whatever else. And she kept seeing this one old bus that was for sale. And she kept saying, Candice, we need to go and look at this bus. This would be the perfect space. It's massive. We could convert it into that mobile wellness clinic. We can live at the back. The front can be the treatment quarters. And, let's go have a look. And then she showed me the price, and it was so expensive. So she showed me that it was $13,000. Now, some of you might be laughing and saying, oh, that's just loose change. But when you're a poverty-stricken student with no savings, it may as well have been $130,000, because it was just out of our reach. It was impossible. And so unbeknown to me, Carla actually put out a fleece on whether we should get this bus. And I didn't know at the time, but we went and had a look at it. And, it was like a massive bus, really, really large, but it was old. It was just in a really bad, decrepit condition, but it was the only thing that was nearby to us, and that, was not in the $60,000 to $80,000 mark plus, So we went and had a look at it. And as we looked at it, I just said to her, I said, I can see the vision. I can see how amazing it would be, but 13,000, that's no way could that ever happen. And she's like, well, if it's meant to be, it'll be meant to be. And I'm like, yep, absolutely. But she had put a fleece out in her mind to God about if he wanted us to have that particular bus, that it had to be $10,000. Now, when we went to have a look at it, the guy who was selling it, he's like, I'm not going any less than 13,000. That's the minimum. I've already dropped it by heaps. And we're like, are you sure you wouldn't drop it any less? He's like, nah, not at all. And he was not budging. So anyway, after seeing it, we just kept praying, and we're like, Lord, if this is not the one, maybe there's something else. But I was having a study one day, and I actually was studying about how God works with things. Us as human beings, we're so finite. Our thinking is subpar, and we can't think big. We often think very small. And God was teaching me how if he has one thing, he can multiply that to 100. And yet as humans, we think I need 1 + 1, which will then equal 2, but it's just so crazy. And God was teaching me that he can do anything with anything. And that morning, I had an amazing study, and I just prayed in my heart. I said, God, you know that we really want to do a mission for you, but we just want to make sure it's your will. And you know that I have this week $700 worth of bills. I think it was my registration, it was, the rent, it was just everything, insurance, everything comes at once. And here I was, a poverty-stricken student. And can you see this little pink pig here? So I had a little pink pig. Yes, I know he's unclean, but he was a banking pig. And when you're a student and you're poverty, you don't even use your savings account because you can't save. There's no money to be saved. So I used to put any cash I had in my little pig. And he had a little snout that you could just twist off and open up, and that's how you get, the money out. And I went to work that morning and I said, God, I've got $700 worth of bills due in like 4 days. I don't know how I'm going to pay for this, but I know that you can do something. And if you can supply my needs, I will know that you will supply the needs for the bus. You'll supply the funds, because we're willing, but we don't have anything. So we just left it in God's hands. That day I had an amazing day at work, witnessing. And then I came home, and before I left that morning, because I had not much money, I always used to check my little pig. That morning I pulled off his little snout, I had a look what was in there, and guess what I had? I had a $50 note and I had a $20 note, $70. That's nothing. I needed $700 to pay my bills in a few days. So when I came home from work, I was going about my chores, and then in my mind, the Holy Spirit kept saying, hey, Candice, go and check your pig. And in my heart, I was like excited. I was thinking, why? Is there something in there? But then the doubt in my human nature kept coming in and saying, why would you go and check the pig? You checked it this morning, there's $70. You don't want to be disappointed, do you? And so I was like toying up. Should I check the pig? Shouldn't I? I know it sounds like a crazy thing, but finally I eventually said, I'm just going to go check it. What have I got to lose? I went and I opened up my little pig snout. I pulled out my 50, that was there in the morning. I pulled out my 20, that was there in the morning. And then I was a little bit disheartened. And then God said, look inside. So I grabbed my little pig and I looked down through his little open snout, and I almost died. There were just rolls of money, $50, $20, $10. And I felt like a kid on Christmas morning. I put my fingers in there and I started pulling out every single note that was in there. And it was on the ground everywhere, and I just felt like it was Christmas. And I counted everything up. I was trembling, I was crying, I was happy. I didn't know what to do. I've never experienced a miracle like this in my life. And when I counted it all up, I was shocked. Guess how much it came to? It came to 700. Did I get 800 so I could go to DFO and buy myself a new pair of shoes? No. But did I get exactly what I needed that week to pay every single bill? Yes. And at that moment, I actually just started crying, and I bawled my eyes out, because I felt like my entire Christian walk up until that moment was only half of what God could have done through and for me, because I always doubted, because I didn't believe. And we all have like an intellectual knowledge of God. We all love him. We want to follow him. We want to do things for him. But I believe that we don't do such amazing things for him because we doubt, or we don't even start by praying big prayers and asking God for impossible things. And then even if we do ask it, our faith might waver and we don't actually believe it. And so I was crying my eyes out, and I just asked God to forgive me for lacking to trust him and for doubting his promises, like my whole Christian walk up until that moment. And then straight away, I called my sister and I said, Carla, guess what? We are going to buy that bus that we looked at. And she's like, yeah, I know, because God already told me. And I said, no, but you don't understand. And I told her the story about how God supplied all of my needs for my bills that week, and how that if he can do that, I believe that he can supply the money needed for this bus, so we can do a mobile wellness clinic for him and go out to the outback towns and reach people who might not ever get to know him. And so she's like, yeah, I know. She said, I've put out a fleece and I'm going to call up the guy right now. And if the fleece is answered, we're going to go and buy it. So she rang up the guy and she said, we will take the bus, but it has to be at a certain price. What's the lowest you would go to? And he said, well, I had been thinking about it since I met you girls. And I've decided he goes, I don't know why I'm going this low, but I'm going to drop it down to 10,000. And to Carla, that was an answer of her fleece. It had to be $10,000 or less. So she's like, that's it, we're going to buy it. So he said, come and do the paperwork. So we're able to go and meet him in a couple of days. Our few little bits of money that we had from our casual jobs, we put together and we put a deposit down. It was like $100. Like, that's how poor we were. And we put down a deposit and we said, we'll buy it, we'll pay you the rest in a month. Because of course we had no other money. And even with our few measly wages that we were going to get from our, we only worked once or twice a week, casually, a couple of hours a day. We were never going to even get to $1,000. And we were thinking, God, you got to come up with $10,000. I don't know how you're going to do it, but we believe that you are able to. And having that miracle happen for me with the $700, and then Carla's fleece being answered, and even just God putting it on our hearts, like, it was so much effort. It was something that you wouldn't do unless God was really putting it on your heart, because so much effort. And then we knew that even once we got out doing the outreach trip, it was going to be just assailed with, troubles and trials and temptations and so forth. It was never going to be easy. But, God was so faithful, and he just gave us enough faith to go and sign the paperwork. So here we are, we signed the paperwork, $100 deposit, told him we're going to pay $9,900 in a month. And so the pressure was on. And so during that month, I tell you what, I've never prayed so much in my life. I have never learned and memorized all those promises in the Bible where God teaches us that we can trust him, that all things are possible. And I really started studying faith. I started doing word studies on faith and what does it mean really to have faith. And turns out that faith and trust are pretty much the same things. And we had to learn that God would do more than we could think or imagine. And one thing that really gave us encouragement was, there's a verse in the Bible where, the story of the 70, where Jesus said to the 70, he said, I want you to go on a mission trip. And he said, but when you go, I don't want you to take your purse, and I don't want you to take an extra coat or whatever. He said, just go. So he sent them out with no money, right? And then what happens when they got back? He said, did you lack anything? And what did they say to him? We lacked nothing. So God was sort of testing our faith like the 70. He was calling us to buy this bus with money that we didn't even have. And then he was telling us to go out and do this amazing Outback outreach, which was just going to be a whole nother set of miracles on its own. And we just had to trust and believe that, faithful is he who has called you, who also will do it. So if God calls us to do something, don't worry about how big or hard or scary or impossible it is that he has asked you to do, but rather just trust him to that extent. The more we trust him, the more amazing things he will do, the more impossible things he will do. And so during that whole month, we just prayed, we just had faith, and we tried not to stress about it because that doesn't make any difference. It won't improve the situation, it only makes things worse. And so amazing things happened during that month. So first of all, there was a girl that I helped with disease, and she overcame it. And her mother ended up loving me like a daughter. And I only saw her once every 6 months or whatever. And during this 1 month, I happened to go visit her and just catch up with her, see how she's going. She's very elderly. And during that trip, she said to me, she said, I don't know why, but I feel like I need to help you out. I never told her the story of the bus. And that's one other thing. Carla and I said to God, we're not going to solicit 1 cent about the bus. We're not going to ask anybody for it. We want you to come through, God. We want you to do it all. And we want you to do things without us trying to help God along the way. And so I never told this lady about the whole experience or what we were going through. And she actually said, I just feel impressed. I want to give you some money. Now, no one's ever given me or Carla 1 cent, because why would they? We didn't have a ministry. We were just 2 young Christian sisters who want to work for God and, you know, somehow help people find the kingdom and find Jesus Christ. And so she gave us $2,000. Now, that might not seem like much to you. And to me, it's like, that's nothing now. But back then, that was like the biggest miracle, like $2,000. It was like so amazing. And when she gave it to us, this lady was a Catholic. Like, she didn't even know God in the way we know God, but she was a very sincere heart, and God used her and touched her heart to give us money for this mission. So we got $2,000 and we put that in the little piggy, and everything we got, we'd put into the piggy. And but during the whole rest of the month, no one gave us 1 cent. Nothing ever happened. But one amazing thing kept happening. Every time I would go and check my little pig. So every few days I'd go and open up the pig snout, and then I'd pull out all the money. Like a couple of $100 would appear. At times, $1,000 would appear. A couple of days later, you know, another 500. Just money kept multiplying inside my little pig. And there was no one who knew about it except me and Carla. We both couldn't have even put money in there ourselves because we weren't even making enough. And no one knew about it. So it was purely miracle after miracle. It was like the money tree, but in a pig. And, you know, since we've told people this story, I've still got that pig. And people always say, can I borrow your pig? I've got a big payment I need to pay. And it's like, no, it's not the pig. It's just us trusting in God. It doesn't matter. He could use anything. But he chose to use this little pig to make the money multiply. It's amazing. And so it came towards the end of the month, and it was the night before we had to go and pay the $9,900. And we counted everything up. We counted it 4 or 5 times just to make sure. And leading up to the few days before the end of the month, God did make lots of money multiply. But on the night before, we counted everything, and guess what? We were still $1,800 short. $1,800. You might think that's not much, but that's a lot. You know, that's like, what, a fifth of the bus payment right there. And so that night we could have stressed, we could have doubted, but because God had led us so far in this month, how dare we doubt what he could do in this one night? And I said to Carla, I said, let's go to sleep. Let's just give everything to God. We'll have peace, because this is God's bus. He's called us, so he has to be faithful and he has to do it. He has to provide the means. And, you know, we always claim the promise, you know, Proverbs 3 verse 5 to 6, that we don't, you know, that we learn to trust in God with all of our heart, not leaning to our own understanding. Our own understanding was like, it's impossible that we're going to get that $1,800. We won't be able to pay the bus and it's all over. But we have to lean not to our own understanding. So we just said, God, you have been faithful right to now. We know you will come through. And we have learned over the years that God always comes through. But guess what? He likes to do it at the last second because it helps us to trust him, and it helps us to really believe that we can trust him, even if it comes to the last second. And that's how God likes to work. So anyway, we put it all back in the pig that night. We went to sleep, and we actually both slept like babies, and it was a beautiful night's sleep. The next morning we woke up, I didn't even want to count the money. I was like, I can't even count it because I'm too afraid that it might not be there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go straight to the bank, and I'm going to get the teller to count all of our random pieces of money and put them in $100 notes, put them in $1,000 piles. I'm just going to do that, and God's got to do something. I don't know. So I did. I went to the bank. The teller was counting, and I could see those thousands coming up. And not only did it come up to the $8,000 mark, which we knew we had 8,200. But guess what? It kept going, and more kept coming. And I was shocked. And so not only did we end up getting that extra $1,800 that we needed, that we were short that night before, but we also had an extra $800. And at first I was like, what is this for? Like, do I get to go shopping now? But of course it wasn't that. I knew it was for something that we didn't have any idea about. So we went to the guy and we paid him the rest of the money. And Carla and myself had smiles from ear to ear, like you could not contain the just absolute amazement and love and satisfaction to know that God is all powerful, and that when he calls you to do something, that he will do more than you can think and ask. And so the guy's like, why are you girls so happy? And we didn't even say anything. We're just like, you wouldn't even believe it if we told you. But we just said, us even having the money for this bus, it's a miracle. And he's like, that's great. I'm just happy I'm getting what I want, you know? So anyway, we paid for it all. And then the guy who we bought it from, he goes, now don't forget, you got to go and pay, you know, your transfer and your registration. And we're like, what? Like, we just, you know, we're just a bunch of girls. We didn't even know that we had to do that. And so we went to Queensland Transport and lined up, you know, we were so scared because all we had was the $800. And when we got to the counter and she had a look at everything, she's like, okay, that comes to $800. So even the fact, even though we didn't understand that we needed to have like 10,800 because of all those extra fees, God knew that. And because we trusted in him, he supplied more than we even knew we needed. And that was just like, oh, it was so blessed. And we were so thankful that God, if he calls you to do something, you don't even have to know or understand everything. You just have to be faithful and step out and go, you know, walk by faith and not by sight. And so that extra $800 was exactly what we needed so that we could get the registration. So then we got the bus home, and you would think that all the work's done. But guess what? The bus that we got was an old, like clapped out Volvo. It was an 88 model. You know, it was pretty rough. And this bus was actually, it had been used for many different things, but the last thing it was used for was a booze bus. You know, those booze buses that they will pull people over, they have to go inside and do all the breath tests and everything. And that's what it was. And so, and all on the sides of the bus, there were heaps of stickers with like alcohol bottles and stuff on it. And, you know, it was like it was pretty rough. And so we had so many things that needed to be accomplished in order for it to be transformed into a mobile wellness clinic. So, you know, we started getting to work, but again, we had no money. Everything that we needed cost thousands of dollars. And we just kept saying, God, you've got to supply the money. And then not only that, you've got to help us to find all the parts we need, because we were in a tiny little outback town and you just can't get everything you want in these little towns. You've got to travel like interstate sometimes, or go to Brisbane, or these big places that were like so far away. So anyway, that night when we got the bus home, we both had a dream, and God basically said to us, girls, I just want to warn you that the enemy, the devil, he's really upset that you guys are going to do this for me. And I'm just going to warn you that you're going to have people against you that you wouldn't even imagine. And he said, but be of good cheer, because I'm going to help you through it all. But just know that he's not happy. And so when we both woke up and we told each other, it was like the same thing. And we said, okay, well, let's not be discouraged, and let's just be faithful and keep doing this bus until God says go. And so straight away, almost, the least likely people that you would imagine that you think would be supportive, they were actually the most negative. And we heard it all. We had people saying to us, you know, you girls are crazy. Like, why would you buy an old dodgy bus? You know, what do you think you're going to do with that? It's not a very good witness for God. And don't you know how dangerous it is traveling the outback? Haven't you ever heard of Wolf Creek? And if you haven't heard it, don't go and watch it. But, you know, all these awful things, you know, it's so dangerous, like you shouldn't do it. And they were well-meaning, but it was actually the enemy using them to try and discourage and to bring in doubt and unbelief. But because God pre-warned us, it was like water off a duck's back. Every time people were negative and said things like that to us, the more encouraged we were and inspired to just press on, because God is more powerful than the enemy. And, but we were disappointed that even some of our closest friends and even our church family, pretty negative, the majority. There was only a few that were actually on board with it, but most people tried to discourage us rather than encourage us. But it was a good learning experience. So anyway, we needed so many things. So we needed a fridge, and all these amazing things happened, but basically we would share. Once we got the bus, we shared people about how God bought us the bus, and we started just sharing it, just to random people down the street. I was telling people from the juice bar, just my customers, just whenever the opportunity arose, I couldn't help but share what God had done for us. And, this one person that Carla shared the story to, she said, I've got a bank account with some money in there, and I don't know how much is in there, but I'm going to close it. And then whatever's left, I'm going to give it to you girls. And I want you to put that towards, building all the things we need to do. So we need to put a fridge in there. We needed to, get like a shower put in there, a toilet, like so many things had to be put in there. Solar power. It was going to cost thousands of dollars, like almost as much as the bus all over again. So anyway, this lady did this, and we never asked her for it, but God impressed her. So just when we had looked for all these things, like we needed a toilet, we ended up being able to get it for half price. The fridge, it had one little scratch in it, we got it for half price. Like miracles happened. And the shower cubicle was going to cost $3,000 to get put in, because we had to basically close up the back door on the bus. You know how doors, they have two opening doors on the bus. So the one had to be fully, plugged up. And then the shower cubicle was all going to cost around like just over $3,000. And the lady who closed her bank account, by the time she transferred the money, guess how much it came to? $3,000. So like everything that we needed, it just kept paying for everything that we needed. It was just amazing all the way through it. And then, we'd put our little tiny wages together, but at the end of the day, God did miracles. So we needed a hot water system, of course, for the shower. We ended up getting it brand new, $600. Same with the fridge, it was brand new, but had a little scratch. Our solar power was $800. I have to share this real quickly with you. When we went to the counter, and we said to the guy, we need this much to run this, this, and that. How much will it come to? And he goes, oh, this will all be like $800. But when he got to the computer and he put it all in, there was an error. And on the computer, it kept overriding and saying, no, 300, He's like, I don't know what's going on. This computer's doing a dodgy, but it's saying that it's only 300. But I know it's 800. I just sold one a few hours ago. He's like, I don't get it. And we just looked at each other and we were like, we know why, because God just overrode it. And why did he override it to 300? Because we only had 300 in our pocket. So everything we needed, God supplied what we needed. And it's just amazing. A guy who was a plumber donated like so many things. He was one of our Bible study contacts that we had got through the juice bar. So we had started doing Bible studies with some people that we met through the juice bar business. And then he actually donated some things, and he built some things in the bus. It was amazing. We ended up being able to get our paint for free. So we had to repaint the whole entire inside of the bus, the whole entire outside of the bus. And painting a bus that's like over 10 meters long, that's a lot of paint and it's a lot of money. But we ended up getting it for free. It was a miracle. We got the bedroom built for free. We only had a few other things to do, and then we got it finished. But I want to show you this bus. So this was the bus that we first got, okay? So this was the original. You've got your right-hand side and you've got your left-hand side. This is after we had pulled off all the stickers with the beer bottles and all the wine pitchers and stuff like that, because of course it was the booze bus. So we had pulled that all off, and then this is what the bus that we had, okay? So this was the beginning. And then you can see like how dodgy it is. Like you can see why we needed to paint it. If it was already a good paint job, we wouldn't have worried about it. But we thought, even though we don't have much money, we still want to make this bus, presentable, because we are representing the King of Kings. And we just, we really just prayed about it. And then, of course, God supplied the paint. So he also wanted us to paint the bus as well. So we did. So we went ahead, and this was the other side of the bus. Look at the roof, how awful it is. There's all stickers, residue on there, but you can't really see it from this picture. And then this is the back door. This is after we had already had that whole back door. I guess I can't like fixed up and plugged up. And then down the bottom, we got a gas bottle area put in there for the shower. And then from the inside, let's just keep going. And then we actually ended up getting it painted. So this is us just preparing it to be painted, because it was a massive job. So we had to sort of tape up, all the windows. And let me show you this story really quickly. You can't just spray paint a bus. Like, it needed to be done by a professional. And because everyone in our little town got to hear of this story of the bus that God bought, even though most of them were not Christian, there was this one guy, I actually helped him with a health problem. And when he heard the story of it, I never told him myself, but he heard from a friend of a friend. He came to me and he said, hey, I heard that you have this bus that God bought for you and that you want it painted. And I'm like, yeah, but I just need to find someone who can paint it, because like I can't paint it. And he said, look, I can paint it. I've had a bit of experience. And I said, how much of experience have you had? Because I just wanted to be really good, like, no offense, but what have you spray painted before? And he goes, oh, I've done a fair bit. He goes, have you heard of a guy called Dick Johnson? And of course, I've heard of a guy called Dick Johnson. Remember him? Remember the race car driver? Remember he was like way back, I don't know, I'm probably wrong, but in the 80s or whatever. And he was like the top racing car driver. And everyone knows of Dick Johnson. And I said, yeah, what about him? And he said, well, I was Dick Johnson's personal spray painter for his cars. And I was like, you're joking. I just wanted to like hug him. And I said, I can't believe it. Are you serious? He goes, yeah, I'm retired now. But he goes, I've got all the proper equipment. And he said, I'll come and do it for you. And I'm like, oh, that's so nice. But how much do you want? And he said, you know what? Because you've helped me out and you helped me for free, how can I charge you? He goes, I'm going to do it for free. I was like, you're going to paint this entire bus, like 3 coats for free? And he's like, yep. And I was just like on cloud 9. Carla and I had so many amazing experiences like that. Like, I can't even share them all with you now because I'm going to wear out the patience of the saints. But let me just tell you that it's absolutely miracle after miracle after miracle. And there's so many that I feel like if I did share it with you, we'd still be here at 5 o'clock tonight. So I'm going to just keep going. But this guy, who was Dick Johnson's personal race car spray painter, he painted this entire bus for us. And, we had to do a bit of prep first, of course. So we were there sanding and we were doing all sorts of things. And it was a bit of fun. It was hard. But we had some fun along the way. These beautiful girls here that were helping us as a lovely family, these are the guys that we started to do Bible studies with. Because of the juice bar. So because of that juice bar business, we became friends with them. We started helping them with their health. Then we started doing Bible studies. It was just amazing. And do you know what? Today, that entire family of 6 have all come and accepted God. They've all been baptized into the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And now they themselves are missionaries. A few of them have gone to Arise and they're out there and they're sharing the gospel. And Carla and I are like happy little parents, so proud of what God has done through and for them. And the mission trips that they do is just amazing. So anyway, here we are prepping the bus for the spray painting. It was a pretty big job and it was tough, but the hardest part was trying to, get all the residue of the stickers off, trying to just get everything smooth, because this bus hadn't had a paint job since the original paint job way back in 88. So there was a lot to be done. But in the end, you can see we got it all taped up and it's looking cuter already. But then this guy here who's up there painting, he's the guy who is the Dick Johnson race car driver, race car painter. So this beautiful guy helped us out and he painted this entire bus, all those coats. And guess what? It was A1, perfect, amazing result. Like, you couldn't have hoped for a better result. And it was amazing because we had to do it outside under just a big old shed. And we were praying that the wind wasn't going to fly up and put all the dust from this outback desert area all on the bus, but God was good. And we didn't have any issues with dust and contamination. So God did a miracle, because, when you spray paint things, it needs to be like baked and it needs to be, in an airtight room. But anyway, we did the best of what we could and it came out amazingly. So here are some more pictures of us just having a bit of fun, because, you've got to do that along the way. It was a stinking hot summer. And we were, very hot, but anyway, this was us and the family just having a good old time. And look at our makeshift platforms there. You've got to do what you got to do, but it worked like a treat. So kept doing that, And you can see already just from just how we did the roof, like look at the change of the roof colour compared to what it was. We decided to go for a nice cream colour, and look at this. This is just the first coat, but how amazing does it look already? Like it's looking really retro, because it's still an old school style of bus, but actually, you know, with the new paint job, like it just looked amazing. So this is what happened. This is the bus, fully painted. So you can see how different it looks. It looks like $1 million. It looked so beautiful, and it was just like the perfect thing to go out and represent God in. You know, he bought this bus for us. He made the money appear, and he even supplied the paint, the painter, everything that we needed. He supplied all of it. And it was because he had a massive mission trip for us to do. And we were just so thrilled all the time to see all these little miracles that God continually did. And to see the bus, you know, we always had the vision of what it could be, but everyone who ever saw it for the first time, they're like, you're going to take that heap of junk out. Like we had so much negativity, so many unbelievers, just, you know, but it just inspired us more and more to trust God, that if he calls us to do something, he will do it, and he will do more than we can think or imagine. So this is the bus when it's all done. So absolutely looked amazing. Yeah, I can't even begin to explain, you know, how good it looked. Now I need to show you the transformation of the bus from the inside. So when we first bought the bus, this is what it looked like. If you can see that picture on the left there, it was already registered as a mobile home, which was one of the big blessings of us getting it like that, because in order for something to be registered as a mobile home, it needs to have already like a sink, and it needs to have beds. And so someone had started to do that, but then of course they sold it to us, and it was registered as a mobile home, but it never really became one. So you can see at the back there, like they'd taken most of the bus seats out. In this picture here, you can see the back steps. So midway down in the bus, you can see that there's some steps that go down, and then that was the door, the old back opening door. At the back, there are kind of like one big bench seat at the back, and then there were two little beds that they had started to make. There's a kitchen there, but of course it was all pretty old, and you can see that there's a fridge in there. That's the fridge we'd already put in. It never came with a fridge, and there's a few other things that we'd already put in there. But basically, that's the original bus. The flooring, as you can see, there is none. The paint, everything was disgusting. It was just really awful, and we still had to put a shower cubicle in there and a toilet, because we needed this bus to be off the grid so that we could travel to these little old country towns and just park on the side of the road and be able to, you know, charge your phone, have lights, put the popcorn maker on, you know, all those things we needed. So we needed to put solar on it, and we just needed to have a toilet as well and a shower. And it had to be fully self-contained, and so that we could do it in places where there were no areas where we could plug into power or electricity. So you can see here on this right-hand side picture, this is the view looking from the back of the bus up to the front, and you can see that back door. So that's where we ended up, you know, filling that in and then putting a shower cubicle in there. You can also see that there was just a big old chest there, and yeah, it's pretty much, it is what it is. You can see it, but so much had to be done in order for this to not only be livable in, but also to be able to be self-sufficient and off the grid, so that we could literally go anywhere and be able to, you know, survive. So there's just some more pictures there, so you can have a closer view. So, you know, it had a lot of work to be done, but it had good bones, and it really just needed to be, you know, refurbished. So just a bit of tender love and care. You can see the two areas where they sort of started to do beds, like 2 single beds, one on each side. As soon as we've got in there, Carla and I, like, you know, we saved the bed that we wanted. Luckily, we both wanted the opposite side because we're opposites in everything. But yeah, so we had a lot to do. But after the bus was fully painted, we started working on the interior. So we'd already put that little 3-way fridge in there. That's the one we got for half price because there was one tiny little scratch. And then this is now the picture of that back door that has been all sealed up and has been converted into a shower cubicle. So that's another story too. The only shower cubicle that we could get in the whole of Queensland was actually in a town that was only 2.5 hours away. And that's close for where we were. So we had to do a 5-hour trip that day, but we got the only basin that was a shower cubicle basin that would fit. So we had to get a special one because of the walls. We had to get, like, you'll see it in a moment. But yeah, so we got that, put that in, the walls were put up. That also became the toilet area in there on the left as well. So you can see that shower cubicle, it was just a special one that was the only one that would fit. And yeah, it was amazing. And then the guy who we bought it from, he said, I haven't had one of these shower cubicles for about 2 years, but I just got one in last week. And we called him and he said, yeah, I just got one in last week. Like, don't tell me that that wasn't God. But we needed that shower, and that shower was a blessing for us when we were out off the grid, and after a big day out in the stinking hot sun, getting sizzled and becoming like beetroots, we wanted that cold shower, I tell you, at the end of the day. Now you can see here, I'm looking into that same cubicle on that left-hand picture. That's actually where we ended up putting our toilet. And I think I've got a photo of that one as well. And then, of course, on the right, that's the beautiful shower cubicle there. So it was amazing. But just to get those done, that was $3,000. Now you can see a picture of the back here. Our friend that I was telling you about, who we're doing Bible studies with, and now who's ended up becoming an Adventist, he built this entire wardrobe at the back of the bus. And we needed that, so we both got 2 drawers each and 1 hanging area. And then inside, I think we've got a picture here as well, but when you open up those cupboard doors, we had a DVD player there, so that wherever we went, we'd invite people in, we'd sit down, we'd watch a DVD, like a spiritual DVD. Like, this room became like a little cinema at times. It was also our bed, our living quarters. We were doing consults there, like all these. It was very dual purpose. But look at the amazing job that he did for us. We're so blessed that he did that, and all for free. And he was just, everyone that God touched their hearts to help us with, it was everyone who was not of our faith. Unfortunately, no one helped us who was like from our church or anything like that. But God had to bring people who were not of our faith to be in contact with us through random different situations, and he touched their hearts, and they helped this whole bus become a reality. And if it wasn't for people who are sincere and who listen to God, in their hearts, these things would not have happened. But we're so thankful and grateful. So so this ended up becoming like our little house, the back part. Now you can see here at the front, we removed that entire cabinet and we put in a table there that you could fold. So here we could do like cooking demonstrations, we could do everything. We got the actual kitchen food license approved, so we could do whatever we wanted in there. This was very important because this table could fold down. And we also had like a steam tent. We had all sorts of things to do that medical missionary kind of work. And so we needed to have things that were flexible. We couldn't get rid of those excess seats out the front, but they came in handy as well, because we'd often have people come in there and sit there, and then one of us would share something and we'd stand at the front of the bus. So it was kind of like a little mini church as well at times, but everything worked together for good. Now you can see here, this was the old kitchen. And what we ended up doing is getting a new bench top, a new kitchen sink. Everything had to be food license grade and food license approved. So all of that got done. It all got repainted. Look at the beautiful colours now. So it just went so far. You can see some cords hanging out of the ceiling that was from our solar panels, which ended up, being our fuel, our electricity support throughout the whole thing. So we just had solar the whole time. We never had to plug into any actual power. So that all looks so much better. That's another view from the other angle. And so it's come quite a long way. We painted the fridge, got rid of that one little scratch, and then look at that, looks beautiful. And then this is looking up the front. So we even painted like the back of the chairs and everything. And see these 2 precious souls here? Another 2 people that they were Christians, they were not Adventists, but we were doing Bible study with them as well. And he's really handy at doing solar work. And so he's the one that set up all of our solar, just absolutely a miracle. And during that time, we kept doing Bible studies with them, but it was such a blessing because God just supplied everyone that we needed. And while he was hooking up the solar, I was painting. It was just amazing. Like, God was so good to give us all of this support and help. So we're looking back now as well. This was the original back now. This is with the shower cubicle added and then the back part done. And then you can see here, this is now being painted. So we painted all the beautiful colours. There were like 2 tones that we used or 3 tones that we used in the bus. So it looks so much better. And you can see that's our little DVD and TV area there. So that came in handy because, of course, we never had any TV reception, and that's fine because we just had all spiritual DVDs. It was just amazing. So here's some more pictures. Everything is slowly getting painted, including, you know, the area at the back of the driver's seat. Just everything was getting done. The doors got painted, like everything got painted. I've got a little bit paint happy, but it was good, and it needed it. It needed a bit of a refresh. You see the solar panel up there on the top of the roof. So that one solar panel, remember we got that from $800 down to $300 with all the cords and the connecting and the inverter and all that kind of stuff, whatever else we needed, the battery. That was $800, came down to $300 because of the computer error. So I love how God works, and he loves to work with computer glitches. And then here we can see just some more painting that's happened. All of those lights that got put in. So we got all new lights put in, and they were all special solar lights. So that was a blessing. We could have those lights going all the time, no problems. This is the pantry area getting painted. So you can see there's been a bit of a paint job still in the middle of it. Yeah, so you can just see the transformation of things happening. And this all took a while, you know, from the time that we bought the bus, or that God bought the bus, and we got it home, it probably took like another 6 to 7 months just to get all of this done, because, you know, it was also always a money thing. It was just us learning patience as well, and then God bringing people into our sphere that could help us with their skills, because we couldn't do a lot of this ourselves. All we could do was paint, but God supplied the rest. So you can see how it's slowly coming along. And then eventually the time came. So it was in a March, which in Queensland in the Outback is like very hot. And God said, it's time to go. The whole bus had been finished, and we went. And guess what? We had a couple of $100 to our name. We were still poverty-stricken students. We still had to learn to trust in God. And when he called us to go, we just stepped out in faith, and, you know, knowing that every single time we had to fill up the petrol tank, it was $400 to fill up the tank, because it was diesel and it was a massive tank. So people don't realize, you know, they think, oh, well, once you got the bus, it mustn't cost hardly anything. Every few days you're having to find $400. So, you know, it was still a big test of faith, but God said go. And because we could see how he had led us in the past, and we saw how he supplied more than what we could even think or imagine, we just had to step out. We had to like step into the Jordan, you know, and then see the things happen. And so we left. We went, it was like the first week of March, we went to go out to, you know, we didn't even know where. We prayed about it. We just looked at the map and we're like, let's go. We just kept going west, 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 northwest, and we were heading up through all the outback towns in Australia that no one ever goes to, that they'll never do, you know, an evangelistic series there, because there's only a handful of people in each town, and the towns are so scattered and far and few, you know, in between, that there's never usually any big outreach efforts that ever happen to them. So we felt like God wanted us to go there and to share the gospel with them, but through the medium of wellness and through God's natural health force. So we went as medical missionaries. Now, Carla and I are both naturopaths, and she's a whole bunch of other things, and I'm a bunch of things as well. But that just helped people to trust us more. But we went there without anything else. We had no real money, you know, we had no savings, and we just had to go. And by faith, just each time we're going to another town, we'd pray about it, and then we'd decide which route we were going to. So nothing was planned, you know, we just stepped out by faith, and everything, God just showed us things every day of where we should go and all this kind of stuff. So we went doing medical missionary work, you know, of course we were doing Bible studies, we did natural remedies, massages, poultices, hydrotherapy, we did lectures and workshops. Wherever we pulled up, we just, you know, get to know the people, let them know that we're here in their town for a certain amount of time. We had proper uniforms because we were going door to door with wellness. So I've done LE work, you know, we've all done, you know, door to door work, and we know that it's tough. You know, we thought, let's do it different this time. We're still going to do it, but we're going to go there with proper uniforms, with our proper badges and our qualifications on there, so that people didn't think that we were a certain type of people, you know, those ones that come and annoy people and they try and shut the door before they even come. We didn't want people to think we were like that. So we would literally pull up in a town. We had flyers, And we would just go to each house, we'd knock on the door and say, hi, I'm Candice, this is Carla, and we are here to see if, to let you know that we're in your town just until whenever, a day or two, or depends on the size of the town. And we're letting you know that we are offering a free health consultation. And then we also have a whole bunch of treatments here that you can help yourself to, and blah, blah, blah. And, they could pay for things which would help to support us to go to the next town. And you know what? You'd be so amazed that we hardly had any rejection, because every single person has some health condition, and no one's going to say no to some free advice. And so people were so welcoming. Everyone let us into their house. And because we didn't go there trying to give them a book or slam, religion down their face, they invited us in and we became friends. And sometimes we'd be in each person's house, for a couple of hours. And it was just amazing how God opened up doors. And we have friends today because of this trip. And anyway, amazing things happen. I'll go through some of the highlights soon, but we basically just went, not knowing how long it would take us, not knowing when we'd come back. We just went by faith, and also not knowing how it was all going to happen, because we had no money. But, God touched a few people's hearts along the way. Some people gave us a donation for fuel and things like that. It was just amazing. And every time we had no money and then we had to fill up the bus, we'd go and then we'd have a look and suddenly money would appear, like just where God's people, weren't able to help us, God would just supply the need. So it was just amazing. And so many stories like that. But anyway, we went. And we had so many trials. We had so many attacks. We had the enemy on our backs the whole way. And we had people who were possessed that would, as we were walking past and going door to door, they would yell out in demon voice, you're wasting your time, and all this kind of stuff. And we were just like so encouraged, because God called us to do this, and not one devil in hell was going to try and persuade us to stop or to do otherwise. It was actually encouraging. So we kept going. We had dogs chasing after us, trying to bite us and all this kind of stuff. And amazing things happened. And I've just got to share one quick story. But we were in this one town, and it was school holidays. And I don't remember how it was working, but there were heaps of the kids out in the houses. Oh, yeah. And then we were walking down the street. I was on one side, Carla was on the other. And I don't know what it is with these little outback country towns, but a lot of them have these big, massive horse dogs. The dogs that are like the size of a horse, and they're very vicious. And and people would leave their front gates open. So we'd be walking past and the dog would come chasing us. And this one time, I'll never forget it, because we were walking down this street and all the kids just happened to be outside playing at the time. And this big dog starts chasing, and Carla yells out, "This dog's coming." And I turned around and it was coming to bite Carla. And Carla's only a tiny little munchkin. And I didn't know what to do. And then so she just turned around and she just raised her hand in the name of the Lord and said, "Stop, in Jesus' name." And guess what? That dog, who was so vicious, it just went, "Whoop," and it just stopped right there. And the whole, all these kids in the yard saw it, and everyone was shocked. It was like a miracle from God. And then the dog turned around and went back to its house. And everyone just looked. And then because of that miracle that happened, when we got to their house, they're like, "What just happened? He come into my house." They accepted us because something happened that was a miracle. So God did things like that all the time. And it was just amazing. But, we were often assailed by the enemy, but we also had amazing miracles happen, things that we never could have thought would happen. People's experiences, people giving their hearts to Jesus, just amazing things, amazing. But anyway, I'll try and share some of them with you. But I want to share this verse with you. It says that medical missionary work is the pioneer work of the gospel, the door through which the truth for this time, which by the way is 2020 and beyond, is to find entrance to many homes. God's people are to be genuine medical missionaries, for they are to learn to minister to the needs of both the soul and the body. The purest unselfishness is to be shown by our workers, as with the knowledge and experience gained by practical work, they go out to give treatments to the sick. As they go from house to house, they will find access to many hearts. Many will be reached who otherwise never would have heard the gospel message. A demonstration of the principles of health reform will do much towards removing prejudice against our evangelical work. The great physician, the originator of medical missionary work, will bless all who thus seek to impart the truth for this time. So, you know, this little paragraph here, Carla and I held on to. We wanted to be like Jesus, the original medical missionary. He's the one that started it. This is his work. He says this is the work that's going to go right through till the close of time. And here we got the idea of going door to door with the medical missionary work. We've all done the health seminars. We've all done the cooking classes. We've done all that stuff. And there's a place for that. But whoever goes door to door with health as the wedge. So, you know, we went and we did this pioneer work, and it was absolutely amazing. It was better than any door-to-door work we've ever done. We had so many people open up their hearts to Jesus because of it, and we were able to witness to people that never would have opened up their doors if we went any other way. So we're so thankful. And, you know, if we didn't have the bus and have that clinic at the front where we could do everything, fever baths, or, you know, steam baths we were doing massage, we were doing poultices, we were doing everything in that front part of the bus. If we didn't have that, I don't think people would have taken us seriously. You know what I mean? So anyway, it was just amazing. We also hold on to these little verses as well, because every day we needed to know which house we needed to go to, which town we needed to go to. And it says here that Jesus knows us individually and is touched with the feeling of our infirmities. He knows us all by name. He knows the very house in which we live, the name of each occupant. And he has at times given directions to his servants to go to a certain street in a certain city, to such a house, to find one of his sheep. And God did this for us. You know, he would take us to the very town, the very street, the very house at the very perfect moment that this individual was waiting. And, you know, we had people say to us, we have been praying and asking God to show us the truth. And then you came just when we finished praying, like amazing things. And just, you have no idea how God, even the whole time when the bus was getting fixed up, we were praying, Lord, go before us. We didn't even know where we're going, but go before us and prepare the hearts of the people that we're going to meet, because they're your precious souls. And we know you have people out there, and we will travel this sunburnt country of Australia to find them. We will go to the desert like Philip went, because you have a soul, and it's worth it. It's worth all the trials and the struggles and the sunburn that I've had 50 billion times and all the peelings. It was worth it, because someone is going to be in the kingdom, and I believe there's going to be more than one. So when we would also go out and do all these things, we also would actually, if people were not home, you know, we would letterbox things. We were giving out books and DVDs. Every time we did a consult with someone, we'd leave behind a book and a DVD. And before, like if we had just tried to give it to them at the door, they would have rejected it. But because we became friends with them, because we helped them with their ailments, they were ready to accept it. And so there will be people in the kingdom, and I can't wait for that day when we meet on the sea of glass and people come up and say, do you remember me? And it'll be like, are you serious? You're from the bus missionary trips. I can't wait to find that out. But by faith, I believe it to be so already. So we did a whole bunch of things. You know, we'd meet people in their homes. We would do things in the bus. So we did consultations, massages, you know, all the treatments. It was just a real blessing. We took, this was a blessing, our some church friends of ours had a whole bunch of like books and DVDs and all sorts of health outreach material. We had thousands of them, and we went out and we gave them to people. And you can see our little uniform here. So we were Health Linked Natural Therapies, because that was our naturopathic business. And we would go out and we would meet people. And here are some of the towns that we'd go to. There's so many. But basically it was just like outback. These are some of the things that we did. And yeah, it was just amazing to see how God worked. God blessed us on all the places that we went, but I want to share one story with you. So here's me driving the bus there. That's Carla just before we went to bed. Like, you know, it was pretty close quarters, but we didn't have any issues. We even had our 2 dogs with us because we couldn't find anyone to dog sit them. So our 2 dogs came on our first missionary trip. And yeah, it was pretty interesting situation, but it was good. God really blessed. But the very, very first door that we ever knocked on at all was in a town called Miles. And it was the first house that we knocked on. And, you know, the first houses and the first couple are always scary, because if you get rejected, it's pretty disappointing. But God blessed, and this guy answered the door, and his name was Sam. And he said, come on in, you know. We told him that we're health professionals and that we're here to help him if he needs any free advice. And so we went in, we had a consult with him, and it turns out that he had just lost his wife 1 week before we arrived there, and she had died from cancer. And all of his family had just left. They'd had the funeral, and now he was by himself, and he was really lonely. So, you know, we went and we just prayed with him, and we empathized with him, and we just encouraged the poor soul, and we let him know that there's more to this life, even after death, you know, and that that Jesus is the way. And, you know, we did it very tactfully, of course, but in the end, you know, we did a consultation with him. We gave him the book Ministry of Healing. We gave him the book Great Controversy, a whole bunch of health DVDs. And basically we just said, you know, we really hope that you'll find Jesus, and we hope that you'll be able to see your beautiful wife again, you know. And anyway, it took us 3 hours for that first house. And as we started this, we're thinking, I'm pretty sure we'll probably only make it to Roma before we run out of equipment and time. It would probably take us 8 months just to get through the 2 towns, you know. But God blessed, and, you know, not every home we took this much time, but this was a really good experience for us. And then when we left, he said, look, please come back and see me, because I also have cancer and I'm also dying. And I'd love you to come and visit me on your way back through. Whenever you finish your little trip, come back and see me. And we're like, absolutely, Sam, we'll come visit you again. So we kept going. You know, it took us about a week to get through Miles, and then we went to a few other little towns. We went to Roma, and then we just kept going, you know. And like Roma, we were at for like, I don't know, it was about 2 weeks, I'd say. But anyway, each town was different. Little towns, sometimes we were there just for a day, just depends. But another story too, like when it was really early in the morning, and you know, whenever you go door to door, there's certain times of the day that you're allowed to go, and it's illegal to go too early and it's illegal to go too late. So in the early mornings, we'd go and letterbox, and then we'd come back around and then do the door to door. And you know, we were going down this one street, and we'd claim that promise, Lord, take us to that one person on that one street that you want us to share with today in a special way. And as we were going to this place, there was a block of units and the sprinklers were on. Anyway, we started to get wet by the sprinkler, and this guy came running out, and he turned off the sprinkler, and he's like, oh, I'm really sorry about that. And he's like, what are you guys doing? And we said, oh, we're just giving out these free, you know, health books and DVDs, and because we're health professionals, and we're just here for a short time. And he's like, oh, what else do you do? And we said, oh, we do free consults just to give you a taste of things, and then if you want any treatments, you can come back to our mobile wellness clinic. And he said, oh yeah, I'd love a consult, I've got some health issues. And he said, the only problem is I'm waiting for my colleague. He was one of the gas guys, you know, out there, everyone's doing the coal seam gas. So there was a lot of gas workers. And he said, I'm just waiting for my friend to come pick me up, but he's unusually late. And Carla and I looked at each other and we're like, thank you, Lord, because this is just a divine appointment. And so we went into his house and we did a consult for him. And then he said, oh, you've got to do a consult for my girlfriend. And then we did a consult for her. And then this guy who was meant to pick him up didn't come for an hour and a half. And so anyway, we just kept talking to them. And then we left him a whole bunch of books and DVDs. And he was just amazed, you know. And then at the end, he basically said, I know that you were meant to come here today. This is exactly what I've needed. And it's almost like, you know, like you were meant to be here. And we're like, yeah, we know we were. And we're just really glad that we met you. And then as soon as we'd finished everything that needed to be said and everything that was needed to be done, his buddy came and picked him up and took him to work. But he was like so like delayed. So it's just amazing how God works. So anyway, and then, you know, one time when we're in Roma, like we had so many different opportunities. It was just amazing. Like everybody got something, even if people weren't home, we left books, DVDs in their letterbox. But we actually got to go into most people's homes because they were home and have the consults with them. And that was where really miracles happened, because we befriended them. And you know, we're able to counsel a lot of people. So many things happen. I can't go through it all. But basically, as we were going through this one little town called Muckadilla, we met a lady just at the service station, and she had last stage cancer. And when we were there, you know, she was on drips and everything like that. And we just said, you know, we'd love to pray for you. Do you like to read? And we noticed she had some books, you know. by her bedside. So we gave her some medical missionary books, like we gave her Ministry of Healing and some other books, and we were just really just trying to encourage her and share with her about Jesus and what he's able to do. And she believed in Jesus, which was wonderful. And so we just prayed for her, like we just pulled up there just to get fuel, but then, all these amazing God things happened. And then, we prayed with her just in time before the nursing support ladies came in, and then we just hopped back on the bus and left, and it turns out that we knew someone who knew her, and he told us that only a few weeks later that she died, but that she died in peace and with Jesus. So who knows that God took us there just in that time to really just encourage her and help her through those last those last moments of her life. So even out of the bad, I hope to see this beautiful lady in the kingdom. So one time when we were in Mitchell, oh, by the way, that little munchkin there on the bed, that's my turtle. His name is Speedy. And he came on the trip as well. We were almost like Noah's Ark, but just because we had no one who wanted to babysit them while we're on our trip. So Speedy came on the trip. We had our 2 munchkin doggies, Patch and Snickers. And it was fun trying to do everything with them as well. But anyway, Speedy mostly was in hibernation at the time. But when we were in Mitchell, I have to share this one story with you as well. We came to this, we were going past this man's house, and Carlin noticed that the guy in the front yard had crutches. And Carla's like, "Hey, what happened, buddy? What's wrong with you?" And he said, "Oh, you're not going to believe it. I had a really bad motorcycle accident, and I've got staphylococcus infection from the hospital and from all the operations, and I'm in agony and blah, blah, blah." And I said, "Well, it's your lucky day, because Carla and myself are health practitioners and we'd like to help you out. There's some really easy things that you can do that will help you with your pain." And he said, "Oh, well, come on in." So he took us into his house. He had a wife there who was heavily pregnant. I mean, she was about to pop any second. And then he had a couple of little rugrats, a couple of young kids. And I said, "You know what? I'm going to teach your kids how to do hot and cold. I'm going to teach them how to do a poultice, and they're going to do it for you because your wife can't do it." And so anyway, we started doing the treatment on him. He said, "I've got so much pain." He goes, "Everything I take, it never helps." And so he goes, "If you could do anything to help, that'd just be amazing." Like, he was really rough, right? And we said, "Look, we'll do our best. Let's just see what happens." So here we are in his house. And as we're in the middle of doing the treatments, the wife sitting on the couch, she looked out, she said, "Kids, quick, go shut up all the windows, shut the door." And when I said, "Oh, why are you doing that?" She said, "Oh, because the JWs are coming down the street and we never let anyone into our house who was spiritual." And I just laughed, because I looked at Carla and I thought, only through the health message can we get into a house that would never, ever accept the gospel. And so we're in there. The J-Dubs walked straight past because thinking that no one was home. And yet here we were helping these poor souls. And then at the end, we weren't afraid to say, "You know what, guys, we've got some awesome books here. This book's all about health. Look, it has some God stuff in there, but hey, we all need a bit of help in the soul area too, And he's like, "Oh, yeah." Anyway, they fully took everything that we gave them, because guess what? We had helped him. God did a miracle. After one treatment, all his pain disappeared. And he couldn't believe it. He was on so many pain drugs and none of them even touched the sides. But when he had that one treatment, like, we were praying, and God blessed. He blessed, and he took away all the pain after one treatment. And even I know, as a health practitioner, it usually takes a few. But when God wants to make a point, he doesn't need even the poultice, but he just needs us to be willing to cooperate with him. And so that guy, because he had no pain, he's like, "I'll take whatever you've got." And we gave him some health DVDs and other things. And it was just amazing. It was such a miracle. So we left there. And we ended up seeing them again as well before we left the town. And, we made friends with them. And that never would have happened if we went any other way. But thank God for the health work, amen? So anyway, that was amazing. And I have to share this funny story with you too. Look, there are so many, and tell me if I need to stop. Someone send me a text, but I just got to share you this. So here I am. It was a miracle that I even got my heavy vehicle license. So I'm a truck driver now. And, it was tough to learn how to drive this big, massive truck, bus. But in the end, it was just such a blessing. But because this wasn't a big old bus, one day we were driving along, and I think we were it was just before we got to Barcaldine. Anyway, on those outback roads, there's not much room. And when the big old semis come past, they create such a wind vortex that it actually ended up, and this was an old basically panel, but it actually, the whole panel came off the side of the bus and fell on the highway. And so I had to pull over and walk like a kilometre back and pick up this big old massive metal panel and carry it back. Carla thought it was funny, so she took a photo, but it wasn't that funny. But anyway, we got back, and this was actually the panel that was covering up all of those things, whatever that is there. So anyway, it needed not to get wet. So we thought, okay, the next town that we go into, we're going to try and find like a Smash Repairs and get them to fix it. But by the time we got into the nearest town, you can't believe it here, but this was like not long before sunset. Just as we're driving into Barcaldine, we saw a sign that says, you know, Barcaldine Smash Repairs. And we're like, oh, they're already closed. It's too late. We'll go, we'll stay the night, and then we'll come back and get them to fix it and put it on Pop Rivet at all on the next day. So that's what we did. So when we came back the next day, we pulled in there and we said, oh, hi guys, look, our panel has been ripped off by this semi-trailer, and you know, it's all damaged, all the pop rivets have come out. Are you guys able to help fix it? And so these two guys were brothers, and they said, oh yeah, we can fix that. And in my heart, I was just praying and saying, Lord, help them not to rip us off. We're just a bunch of girls. And you know how it is, you know, when you don't know anything, people take advantage of you. And so we just left it to God, and they took quite a while, but they finally fixed it. They seemed to have all the tools, and then they got it all fixed and made even better. That was never going to come off again in the whole rest of the trips that we did. But anyway, as they were doing it to us, as they were fixing it up, Carl and I just said, oh, let's just hope that they don't, you know, rip us off. And at the end, we said, oh, thank you so much, guys. You know, how much do you want to charge us? And they said, oh, no, look, you girls remind us of our own daughters, and so we would never charge you. And so they gave it to us for free, and they said, but let us show you what we're working on at the moment. So they took us back into their big old shed, and they showed us this. And this was a big old 1840 Cobb & Co coach, and it was actually owned by their great-granddad. Now, it had been sold and passed on through different people during the years, but they were able to find the person who owns it, and they bought it back. And what they were trying to do was to refurbish it from scratch and get it to work. So this is amazing. They were restoring this old 1840 Cobb & Co coach. Now, when they were showing us this, like that's all they had. They had the wheels, they had a few other bits of the frame. They came and they showed us this little replica at the bottom there. And they said, this replica was done by our friend who's a fitter and turner. And he has done exactly the style, everything to spec of what this is going to look like when we're done. So we are building it to these plans. And I was like, that's amazing. And so anyway, we ended up leaving there, and, you know, we said, look, we thank you that you haven't charged us, but let us at least give you a book and a DVD. And we did. We gave them Great Controversy. We gave them a few little things, and we just said, thank you so much for helping. And they said, why don't you go and visit our friend who made us this replica? He's just around the corner. And we're like, that's a God-ordained appointment. So we did. They gave us his address. He was in the same town. We drove around with the bus to this guy's house, and then we started talking to him. So this is the guy here. This guy was a beautiful guy. He had a really bad speech impediment, and he was quite lonely because he sort of stayed to himself. And I think his only friends were the two brothers that we'd just met before. Oh, I have to just digress. Going back to the Smash Repair brothers, you know, they fixed it all for us. And then as we left, I just said, you know, I'm so glad that we saw your business sign just as we were coming in when the sun was going down. And they said, what do you mean? And we said, oh, you know, we didn't know where a Smash Repairs would be, but we saw your sign as we drove into town, and then that's why we came back this morning to get it. And they said, oh, that sign. They said, we're not Smash Repairers. We bought this property like 7 years ago, and that was the guy who owned this property before us, but we're not even mechanics or anything. And I'm like, but you fixed my bus and you're building this thing. And he said, well, they both said, yeah, but that's just our hobby. We're just really handy. And I was like, are you serious? So you're not even Smash Repairs? And they're like, nah. They said, we really should take that sign down. So, you know, like amazing things happen because God kept that sign on there for 7 years just so that we could go back and meet them that time because we were in need, and so that we could give them the truth. And don't tell me that God didn't have that all planned before this world was even created. Like he knows the end from the beginning. He knew this was all going to happen, and he purposely had it ready. So I'm so thankful that things like that worked out. Like I'm saying, like miracles happen all the time. Amazing, weird and wonderful experiences happen, which were all totally God ordained. And so anyway, those brothers got that amazing truth. And then they sent us to this other friend of theirs. So we went and saw him, and he showed us all these things. He used to make windmills. Everything he's made there, he's made from scratch. He's super, super talented and just a really lovely, genuine guy. And he took us through all this stuff. He was so proud to be able to show off what he has. And then in the end, you know, we became like really close enough with him to say, you know, we thank you for your time, and we don't have any money to give you for giving us this amazing tour, but we've got this book and we've got some DVDs here. So would you like them? He's like, absolutely, thank you so much. And so anyway, we just thank God for these amazing opportunities. You know, we never would have met these guys if it wasn't for that so-called breakdown. I want to share this amazing story with you as well. Basically, when we were in Emerald, Emerald is a very interesting place. We had a nice park there, and so we stayed at the park. And anyway, but just before we left, so we'd finished doing the whole of Emerald. It was a pretty big town, and we were exhausted and tired and sunburned. And then we were just about to leave, but as we were leaving, on the map, you know, there were 2 routes to go to the next town that we wanted to go to. But one of them looked really windy. And when you're driving a massive long bus, you don't want to drive around tight corners, right? Because it's not flexible. And so I said to Carla, I said, I'm going to pull up at the front of the information centre. I want you to go in and just ask them which would be the best route for a long, heavy vehicle. You know, this was over 10 tonne, this bus, and very long. So Carla went in, and I'm just sitting there. I've got Patch and Snickers sitting on the chair behind me in their seatbelts. I had Speedy starting to wander because it was, you know, he was coming out of hibernation. He's wandering down. And then next thing, these 2 boys, young boys, came along on their bike, okay? Oh, there were 3 boys, sorry. Came along on their bike, and I had the front door open to get some air in. And they came along, and they said, hey, we saw you on TV. And I was like, are you talking to me? And they said, no, we saw you on TV. We know that you're traveling around Australia and you're helping people with their health. And I was like, yeah, that's what we're doing, but how do you know that? And they said, yeah, we saw it all, and we just want to see what you're doing. Can we have a look in your bus? And I'm like, yeah. So I just went with it because, you know, God did so many amazing things like that. Somehow he really did make us get interviewed on a television station in this local town, or even if it was just for these 3 families, and we were interviewed, and they saw us talking to people about how we're going around Australia in the outback helping people with health. Except guess what? We never did. We never were on TV. We were never interviewed. And so I don't know what they saw, but anyway, they thought it was us. So when they said that, I was like, I'm just going to go with it. So I said, come on in, boys, let me give you a tour of the bus. So I took them through, I showed them the living quarters, I showed them all of the materials that we're giving out. I showed them all the books. So we had like so many spiritual books and DVDs and Bibles, just everything. And I showed them everything. And then I said, you know, oh, you guys should take some home to your families, you know, tell them that it's the girls that you saw on TV gave it to you. And they're like, yeah, okay, but guess what? The 3 boys were on 3 bikes. And have you ever tried to carry anything when you ride a bike? It's pretty much impossible. Like, you're going to have a stack. And so I know that I needed 3 bags, except that morning before we left. So we always had bags that we would, you know, throw your rubbish in and all this kind of stuff. So that morning I said to Carla, guess what? I've just used the last bag for the rubbish. Before we leave town, let's get another few bags, you know, because you always need bags. So we had no bags, and I knew it. And so when I was telling these boys, oh, I'll just get you some bags, in my heart I was like, Lord, there are no bags, but please, can you just make some appear? At that moment, Carla came in, and she's like, oh, what's happening here? Because there were 3 strangers in the bus, right? And I said, oh, these boys saw us on TV, and they've come in to have a tour of the bus. And she's like, what? I'm like, just go with it, you know? And so she's like, okay. And I said, Carla, we just need 3 bags. And she's like, oh, we don't have any. And I'm like, I know, but can you just have another look? So she went and had another look. And guess what? I don't even have to tell you. There were 3 bags plastic bags that appeared right there where we always kept our plastic bags, even though there were none that morning when I told Carla we had none, because God made these kids see this interview. God made them interested enough to want to come in. God opened up the opportunity for them to be able to take all these amazing like books and DVDs all about health and about God. And so as if he was going to leave it to chance for them to try and carry it as they ride home. No way. He made 3 bags up here. I packed each one of those bags so full so that they could all have it as they drove off. And as they rode away, they're like, Hong Kong. So I gave them the big Hong Kong and they drove away, never to be seen again. And, you know, I don't know why God did that, but I have a pretty good idea. And I just believe that someone in that family, maybe hopefully all 3 of those different families of those boys, will be in the kingdom. God did that for a reason. So even if he had to make all of that appear and all those things happen, even though it never really happened, like I think I'd remember if I was interviewed on TV, God doesn't need that, but he just needed us to be willing, and we were. So God is so good. Absolutely amazing. So many things like this happen, but as I said, I'm running out of time. I don't want to wear out your patience, guys, but I'll just finish off with a few more things. So, you know, we ended up going to all these different towns. We didn't have any gyms, so we had to make do. We were just, you know, doing whatever we could. You could see we got pretty sunburnt all the time. These were our little munchkins that came with us, Patch and Snickers. And, you know, they were so good. And people love to meet them too. You know, animals are very healing, especially for people who have been through a lot of trauma. And when people would come into the bus, it was a wonderful, softening first meeting. And, you know, they would just hug them while they would share, you know, of terrible experiences they've been through and through all the counselling that we did with them and things like that. So, you know, they were very instrumental in part of that whole experience. So, you know, this was just our first trip that we did. The only reason we ever had to stop doing this Outback outreach ministry or this first mission trip was because we ran out of all the materials. So all of the thousands of books, all of the thousands of pamphlets, all the thousands of DVDs, everything we donated, which was such a blessing. We got to the point where there was nothing left. We had nothing. And so we prayed and we said, Lord, do you want us to go home? Or if you want to, and can I share one thing? So we ran out of everything, and then God said, yep, start going home. So we started traveling home. But just before we got home, we had another God appointment, and we met these 2 people, beautiful little old lady, little old man. And, you know, we did some consults with them. We also did some treatments on them. And then at the end, I was like, Lord, I really don't have any books or anything to give them. Can you please just make something else appear? Whatever they need at this time, please make it appear. And then God did one last miracle. And even though we had not one book, not one pamphlet, not one anything, God made 3 books appear. And so with those books, like I went into that cupboard where we used to have all of our materials, I opened it up, guess what? There was 3 books. So I gave that to these last people. And so that was just a miracle, even right to the end. And we believed that, you know, we said, God, we've run out of material, but if you want us to keep going, we know that you can make it appear. But he didn't. So it was time for that first mission trip to end. So we made our way back home, and then we were able to start sharing, you know, what God was doing, and people just caught the vision, and people started to step out in faith and do ministry for God, and things that, you know, they would never have done unless they'd heard this testimony. So who knows, but, you know, just sharing this little testimony of what God has done for us, how much it can be a ripple effect and encourage and inspire other people to actually step out and do something that right now they feel like they can't. But I just want to say that, you know, all things are possible. So there are so many things that we could have shared with you, but as I said, running out of time. But I'm glad I got to share all the ones I did, because I just hope that it's shown and encouraged each one of us that we just have to be willing to go, and God will do the rest. We don't have to have any special skills. We don't have to, you know, have heaps of experience. We don't have to have much. We just need to have a willing heart and full surrender. And then God can use us without limit and without measure. So I want to remind you of this verse here. You know, it says that there's no limit to the usefulness if we put everything aside and work for God. So if there is no limit for what God can do through you, what is God calling you to do for him today? I don't know where each one of you are at. I don't know your experiences, but I do know that time is short. And I know that God is calling each one of us to step up. He's calling us to be the people that he wants us to be. He wants to finish the work. He wants people to know about him so that he can come home and take us all to heaven. He doesn't want this world to go on any longer. And I'm sure none of us here want to either. So it's all about, are you ready to fully surrender everything to Jesus? Are you willing to fully give him your heart to the extent where you no longer make plans for yourself, you no longer plan for your future, but you just say, Lord, I'm here for your service. What do you want me to do? And he will show you, and he will put that purpose in your heart. He will give you that mission in your heart. And if you are faithful and you trust and you believe and you are obedient, God will do things through you that you right now would not even believe possible. But I just want to say that, this has been an amazing experience for Carla and myself. God has done so many amazing things in mission trips since then. But I wanted to share that first one with you because it really helps you to see what God can do. So I'd like to just play a little song for you. And it's just a song that we all know about. It's, The Savior is Waiting. I know that nearly everyone here has probably already surrendered their life to Jesus and that we're following him, and we've probably been following him for years, if not our whole life. But I want you to fully surrender your purpose and your skills and your time and your energy and your service to Jesus. So as I play this little song that I've already pre-recorded, I just pray that you'll listen to those words and rededicate your lives to Jesus right now. And more so with the mindset of surrendering everything to God for service so that he can use you without limit and without measure. So I just pray that you'll be blessed as you listen to this little song, The Savior is Waiting. Just trying to work this out. We've got two computers here. Let's see if this will work. Can you guys see that? Just give me a thumbs up if you can see it. Does it go big? Okay, 1 second. Okay, so just let me know if you can hear and see it, guys. Let's just try this again. Yes. How do we do that? 1 second. So let's get rid of all of that. Okay, let me know if this works, guys. Yep. Is that working? Okay, wonderful.
The Savior is waiting to enter your heart. Why don't you let him come in? There's nothing in this world to keep you apart. We